First off, I'm sorry From Software. I know you're not accustomed to hearing that, so I'll give you a moment to adjust. Armored Core 6 wasn't up to the quality I've come to expect from From games. To date, I've played Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, and Sekiro all the way through. So I didn't do enough research before buying this game because I figured From Software is a safe bet. Watching some gameplay would have been a good idea, assuming the gameplay footage was available at the time, but I didn't do that. I'm going to list my nitpicks of the game now in the order that I noticed them. The textures. I set the graphics on max and still the textures looked rough. Things on the ground in particular looked melded together with the debris sticking out of the ground. All the textures I saw looked to be on the same level. I get that the game might be too crazy to run on your average gamer's PC if these textures were higher quality, but there's other ways they could have went about this. There's a desert level that does a great job of what I'm about to mention here. I thought it would be a good idea to have the levels darker, attacking more at night time where you can't tell so easily that the textures are low quality. The desert level did something similar by giving a little sandstorm effect to the whole map. The textures looked fine in that environment. The design of the enemies and the couple of bosses I ran into before asking for a refund looked boring. They didn't look terrible, but they could have been more flashy and cool looking. The environment with them and all the other enemies in it looked bland. When the first boss got destroyed by the almighty gamer that is me, he just kind of poofed into some metal pieces that despawned as they fell to the ground. It would have been cool to see him in pieces falling through the sky and affecting the terrain in some way. The next thing I noticed was how quickly they seemed to want me to grind out lazy feeling missions. Right after defeating that first boss, you get thrown into some fillers. Not all of them are this way, but the first two they give you definitely feel like it. You do tear through them extremely fast though. All the rewards I got in this game felt insignificant. I didn't bother much checking them out though because I was in a bit of a rush to finish as much of the game as I could within that 2-hour Steam refund window. Before the first hour was up, I already had a feeling I'd be asking for a refund.
Look at that terrain. It almost seems like they didn't try on that. It's kind of frustrating for a $70 game. Oh, $60 game, but I bought the $70 version. And it kind of looks like crap. I don't want to be a jerk, but it just, I feel a little ripped off here.
But I wanted to give the game more of a chance to redeem itself.
Ready? Yeah! Cool.
Confirmed. Heavy combat helicopter is down.
And it just obliterates into pieces that can't be seen.
Somewhere along the way, I noticed the soundtrack wasn't up to the level that From Software typically operates at. I didn't feel like they set the mood. I want to be wined and dined. That sums up the negatives that were stacking up in my mind at the time, but there were 3 things I liked about the game in my short time playing it. The way you moved around in combat, specifically the skating and the dodging, looked really cool. And it felt great too, maneuvering around and fighting. Sonic workers have a significant edge in this game. I also liked how calculated the first boss was. He would shoot homing missiles one way, then flank you the other way. You run from him, you take heavy damage. You run to him, you take heavy damage. You want to be as strategic as possible by riding your melee as much as possible without taking damage and without your enemy backing up as you approach to dump rounds into you. All your bullets are just filler damage. The sword is the main weapon here. The last thing I liked was the voice acting. It didn't seem real special at first, but the first mission you do with people on your side, and one mission in particular where you destroy a mech with a trainee in it, had some pretty neat line reads. One of the guys on my side did some kind of scoff, like in anime at one point, so that was pretty cool. And the trainee I murdered in cold blood was saying some sad stuff as he died. You are very clearly the bad guy, at least at the start of the game, up to the point where I stopped. You're slaughtering those rebels, and I felt like crap afterwards. But I did like the boundless power I had over those puny mortals. You're part of a corporation killing the actual people in the game. There's a reason why you in particular are doing these things, but it didn't make me feel any less bad about it. Well, that sums up my brief stint in the Armored Core. It felt like a really fun Xbox 360 game, and I mean that in the best of ways. I would probably rebuy it if it dropped down to $40. It's a fun, arcade-like shooter. Just expensive for what it is.
No!
Please forgive me, From Software.
113 minutes. We did it! Whoa!